The morning air inside the gray rock boardroom smelled like money, burnished leather, dark roast espresso, and the sterile polish of power. Noah Grant stood by the window, sunlight glinting off the glass table behind him. On it lay the contract he'd chased for 18 grueling months. $60 million. The largest deal in company history. He had given everything for this. Late nights, missed holidays, the quiet sacrifices no one documents. And now, he was finally there. The door opened. Grant Ellison, the CEO, stepped in with perfect silver hair and a tailored navy suit. Beside him trailed Kendra Rowe, vice president of sales, always immaculately dressed, always smiling like she already owned the room. But something felt off. No handshake, no congratulations, just a stiff nod. Noah, Ellison said, not even glancing at the contract. We need to discuss restructuring. Noah's stomach tightened. We're taking the company in a new direction, the CEO continued, sliding a folder across the table. Your position is being eliminated, effective immediately. Time stopped. Noah stared at the termination letter, his hand cold against the smooth paper. The words swam before him like a cruel hallucination. Kendra would now be overseeing the Haven Tech account, the account he had built from scratch, the deal he had sealed. Ellison's words droned on, but Noah barely heard them. His pulse thundered in his ears. Kendra smiled, smug, polished, rehearsed. Her eyes flicked down to the folder like it was a trophy. Noah said nothing, just signed the letter, and smiled. Underscore. They didn't know what he knew. 2 weeks earlier, Noah had sat across from Zaria Knight, the CEO of Haven Tech, a woman known not for charm or suits, but for her brutal honesty. We're ready to sign, she had said, rain tapping the windows behind her. But I want one thing. I need your word that you'll personally oversee implementation. Noah had hesitated. That wasn't Gray Rock's protocol. Sales closed, ops took over. But Zaria wasn't budging. So he promised. Not in writing. Not in legal language. Just a handshake. I trust you, she said, not your company. And that handshake, that was the one thing Gray Rock never knew about. Underscore. Underscore. 3 days before the deal's public signing, Noah had overheard Kendra's voice through a cracked door. She doesn't have the pedigree, she had whispered to the CEO. Haven's team all went to Ivy League schools. Noah's degree? State college. Noah had frozen behind the wall, rage and humiliation boiling inside. This wasn't about performance. It was about perception. He had never belonged in their club. Not really. And now, the moment he proved himself, they had decided he didn't fit the image. So they fired him. Underscore. That evening, back in his apartment, Noah microwaved leftover pasta and sat on the couch still in his dress shirt. He watered his plants, fed his cat. Life stubbornly moved on. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Zaria. Looking forward to seeing you Monday for kickoff. My team's excited. He stared at the screen. Gray Rock hadn't told Haven yet. Of course not. They would fire him Friday, celebrate the signing Saturday, then tell Zaria Monday she'd be working with someone else. Noah could have warned her, but he didn't. Instead, he smiled, because some things are better witnessed than warned. And Gray Rock, they were about to learn the cost of betraying the wrong person. The Gray Rock conference hall gleamed with rented grandeur. Champagne bottles chilled in silver buckets. A photographer hovered by the entry, camera ready. On the center screen, a looping slideshow displayed corporate milestones and buzzwords. Integrity, innovation, impact. It was Saturday. The big day. Signing day. Executives adjusted ties, cleared throats, rehearsed sound bites. They'd fired Noah on Friday, buried the news, and now braced to bask in his work without ever mentioning his name. But there was one problem. Zaria Knight hadn't arrived yet. And when she did, right on time in her signature minimalist outfit, everything unraveled in seconds. She stepped into the room. Eyes scanned. Smile missing. "Where's Noah?" she asked. A hush fell. Grant Ellison moved forward, ever the actor. "Naomi, Noah is no longer with us. But I'd like you to meet Kendra Rowe, who will be." Zaria raised a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "No, Noah. No deal," she said flatly. "What?" Grant blinked. Zaria stepped closer. "I didn't trust your brand. I trusted him, and he gave me his word." Confusion flickered into panic. Kendra's face drained of color. Zaria didn't shout. She didn't threaten. She simply turned to leave. The contract untouched. The cameras never clicked. The deal was dead before the first toast. Across town, Noah sat cross-legged on his couch, sipping coffee in an old college sweatshirt. He wasn't watching live coverage. There wasn't any. Grey Rock had pulled the plug before the press could notice. But his phone told the story. 30 missed calls. 2 dozen texts. 1 voicemail from Marcus, Grey Rock's general counsel. "You dropped a bomb in the boardroom. Call me." Noah smiled. He didn't need to lift a finger. He had lifted something more powerful weeks ago. A promise. Monday morning came like thunder. The company scrambled. Panic metastasized. Grant called, then begged. "Noah," he said breathlessly, "this is salvageable. We can discuss your position. Name your terms." Noah leaned back in his chair, watching the sun stretch through the blinds. "Funny," he said. "You didn't think I was worth negotiating with on Friday." Grant's voice faltered. "We made a mistake." "No," Noah replied. "You made a decision." They offered him everything. Triple salary, corner office, executive title, full control of Haven Tech. And Noah said no, not out of pride, but clarity, because Grey Rock had proven something. They only valued people when they bled, when they begged, when it was too late. And Noah? He wasn't coming back to fix a fire started by people who'd tossed away the extinguisher. That night, Zaria showed up at his door with a bottle of expensive tequila and a knowing smirk. "You should have told me," she said as he let her in. "Would it have changed anything?" "No, but I would have brought popcorn to the signing ceremony." They laughed. They drank. And then she made him an offer. "I'm not working with Grey Rock," she said, "but I still need a solution. And you still need a battlefield." He raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting?" Her eyes gleamed. "I know someone you need to meet." The next day, Noah stood on a rooftop restaurant across from a man in jeans and a plain white button-up. No pitch deck. No bravado. Just quiet focus. "Zaria speaks highly of you," the man said. "That's rare." His name was Blake Ashton, CEO of a small startup called Orion Nexus. They weren't flashy. They weren't funded. But they were building something different. "Why am I here?" Noah asked. Blake sipped his tea. "Because you kept a promise that wasn't written in ink," he said. "And we need someone like that." The fall didn't come with an explosion. It came with silence. Emails unanswered. Contracts on hold. Then whispers. Then full-on inquiries from clients asking one simple question. "Where is Noah Grant?" At first, the Grey Rock leadership dismissed it. Kendra assured the board, "We're reinforcing the account with stronger executive coverage. This isn't about one person." But clients weren't buying the script. Because Noah hadn't just sold products, he had built trust. And trust, once fractured, doesn't heal with branding decks. On a cold Thursday morning, Noah woke to the smell of coffee and the soft pings of his phone buzzing relentlessly. Texts, missed calls, an email from Marcus. "We need to talk. You've become the conversation." He didn't respond. Instead, he sat by the window, watching the city wake up. He didn't need revenge to be loud. Some victories bloom in quiet collapse. At Grey Rock, the panic finally took form. 3 clients pulled meetings. 2 delayed contracts. 1, Meridian Solutions, directly cited leadership inconsistency and requested external reassessment. Kendra scrambled. She reached out to Zaria multiple times, calls, emails, even a handwritten note delivered to her office. Zaria blocked her number. When asked why, she simply told a reporter, "If you break a promise, don't send someone else to apologize." The quote went viral. Meanwhile, Blake invited Noah to meet the rest of the Orion Nexus team. Their office was small, raw, a far cry from Gray Rock's mahogany corridors. But it hummed with something rare, belief. Noah walked through rows of engineers with messy desks and clear eyes. People who weren't calculating their next promotion, but chasing something purer. Blake turned to him and asked, "What title do you want?" Noah shook his head. "I don't need a title," he said. "Just give me a team that cares and a product that matters." Blake smiled. "Done." Back at Gray Rock, cracks widened. An internal memo leaked. It showed board members blaming each other for the Haven Tech fallout. Kendra pointed to legal. Legal pointed to Grant. Grant pointed to HR. No one pointed at themselves. Investor confidence dipped, then dropped. Their stock fell 12% in a single week. The press caught wind of it all. From powerhouse to panic. What happened to Gray Rock? How the fire manager sparked a corporate earthquake. The rise of Orion Nexus, the startup built on integrity. And then, the headline that hit hardest. The only deal that mattered, and the man they let go. Noah didn't bask in the headlines. He was too busy rebuilding. Late nights, honest debates, real deadlines, no corporate masks, just sweat, clarity, and a shared hunger for doing things the right way. One afternoon, as he led a strategy session, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Marcus. "Kendra's out. Board forced her resignation this morning. Grant's been demoted. They're scrambling." Noah stared at the message, then put the phone face down. No reaction, just breath, just peace. Because when the house falls not from outside fire, but from rot within, there's no satisfaction, only validation. That night, walking home, Noah paused at a street corner and looked up. Across the skyline stood Gray Rock's tower, lit, tall, unchanged on the outside, but hollowed. He whispered to himself, "You never saw me coming because you never saw me at all." And with that, he turned toward the lights of something far smaller, but infinitely more alive. It started with a knock at the wrong time. A Sunday evening. Noah was slicing carrots in his quiet kitchen, jazz humming low in the background when the buzzer rang. He opened the door to find a courier, black suit, blank face, holding an envelope with the Gray Rock seal. No words, just a nod. Inside, a letter signed by the board, not Grant, not Kendra. It was simple. "We recognize your importance to the Haven Tech relationship. We are prepared to offer reinstatement, retroactive compensation, and full executive control of strategic partnerships. Let's correct this." Attached was a number, one that could rewrite most people's lives. Noah folded the paper once, then again, until it fit neatly into the trash bin beside the sink. He didn't even pause. But Gray Rock didn't stop. The next day, a call from Grant himself. His voice, once smooth as marble, now roughened by weeks of pressure. "Noah, this is unsustainable," he said. "Clients are asking about you. Investors are concerned." "I'm sure they are," Noah replied. "We're not here to beg, but we're willing to make it worth your while. You can name your conditions. Anything." Noah let the silence stretch. Then, "Do you remember what Kendra said about me? When she thought I wasn't listening?" Grant stammered. "She said I wasn't the right pedigree, that my state college degree would embarrass the boardroom." That wasn't personal, but it was. Noah said calmly, "You just didn't think I'd win. They offer more. VP title, equity, triple salary, a seat at the table." But Noah didn't want the table anymore. He wanted to build a different room. So he said no, not in anger, but with a kind of peace Gray Rock couldn't understand. "You valued me when it was easy to discard me. Now you want me when it costs you everything. That's not vision. That's panic. And panic doesn't earn loyalty." Back at Orion Nexus, things weren't luxurious, but they were alive. Noah sketched ideas on glass walls, ate lunch out of brown bags, and sat in scrums with interns who didn't care where he'd worked, only what he could teach. He'd never felt richer. He wasn't running away from anything anymore. He was building. That Friday, Zaria texted a screenshot of a leaked memo. Gray Rock board requests emergency acquisition talks with Orion Nexus. She added one line. "They still don't get it." Blake laughed when he saw it. "They want to buy what they can't even define." Noah didn't laugh. He just shook his head and said, "Tell them we're not for sale. Not now. Not ever." And so, for the second time, Noah turned down everything Grey Rock once assumed no one could refuse. But this time, the refusal didn't sting them because of pride. It stung because it echoed through the industry, through competitors, through clients who realized maybe value couldn't be bought. Maybe it had to be earned. In Grey Rock, they were running out of people willing to earn anything on their behalf. Orion Nexus didn't make headlines that first week. They made progress. Noah spent his mornings in whiteboard sessions and his evenings answering emails one by one. Clients curious, skeptical, but intrigued. Zaria was the bridge. She introduced Noah to founders who had once idolized Grey Rock. Now, they were just watching it bleed. "You walked away from $60 million, one executive said, shaking his head in disbelief. "I didn't walk away," Noah replied. "I was pushed. Then I chose where to land." And that truth, it carried weight, because in a world full of spin, authenticity spreads like wildfire. Meridian Solutions came next, a billion-dollar logistics firm that had been considering Grey Rock for months. After the Haven tech debacle, they went quiet. Then they called Noah directly. "We're not looking for a show," said CEO Diane Powell. "We want substance. Can you deliver?" Noah didn't send a deck. He sent a one-page letter. Plain font, plain language, just one sentence bolded at the top. "We'll never treat you like a line item or a trophy." Meridian signed with Orion Nexus 10 days later. The deal was worth $40 million. Grey Rock panicked. Their board hired PR firms. They revamped their messaging. They issued half-hearted apologies on industry blogs no one read. But clients weren't watching the headlines. They were watching Noah, watching him do what he'd always done. Show up, deliver, listen, and that was the difference. At Grey Rock, he'd been a tool behind the scenes. At Orion, he was the reason people came to the table. One night, Blake walked into Noah's office, holding 2 beers and a printout of a social media post. It was from a junior analyst at a Fortune 500 firm. "Orion Nexus didn't just win our account. They made us feel like people again." Blake handed him a beer. "To the spark," he said. Noah clinked his bottle. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel like he was fighting anymore. He felt like he was building something. Not out of spite, but out of belief. At the end of that quarter, they ran the numbers. 3 major accounts, 10 smaller clients. Growth that even their investors hadn't predicted. But that wasn't the part that mattered most. The part that mattered was this. Noah Grant's name was becoming shorthand for one thing in the industry: integrity. And integrity, once ignited, doesn't flicker. It burns. It started with a message from Logan Shun. Noah hadn't spoken to him since the Grey Rock fallout. Logan was one of the sharpest system architects in the company. Quiet, precise, often overlooked because he didn't play politics or speak in buzzwords. "Got a minute?" The message was short, cautious. They met at a coffee shop near Union Square. Logan arrived early, as always. No briefcase, just a notebook and tired eyes. "I heard what really happened," he said after the first sip. "About Haven. About you." Noah stayed quiet. "I stayed because I thought I had to," Logan continued. "But I've built their systems for 6 years, and I still don't get invited into the room. I'm too quiet, they say. Not polished enough." Noah nodded. "You're not the only one who's heard that line." Logan looked down, then back up. "I want in." Over the next 2 weeks, more messages came. A junior project manager who'd been dismissed as too assertive. An analyst whose ideas were always adopted, but never credited. A recruiter tired of hiring based on school names rather than skill sets. They didn't want titles. They wanted truth. And at Orion Nexus, truth wasn't a slogan. It was policy. Blake was hesitant at first. "This isn't a rebellion," he warned Noah. "We're not here to scoop up Grey Rock's cast-offs." "We're not," Noah agreed. "We're building something better. If they align, they're welcome. If not, we keep moving." But the ones who came, they didn't bring baggage. They brought clarity. Noah called them the Phoenix team. People who had burned quietly in systems that didn't see them, now given air and space and trust. Logan redesigned the back-end infrastructure in 2 weeks. It was cleaner, faster, more secure than anything Grey Rock had shipped in years. Mira, the analyst who never got promoted because she was too direct, built the data visualization platform that finally made Orion's dashboards click with clients. Jason, a customer success rep passed over repeatedly because he lacked executive polish, became the heartbeat of the post-sales experience. No one checked resumes. They checked commitment. And it worked. Inside Grey Rock, the exodus wasn't loud, but it was steady. LinkedIn updates, whisper goodbyes, nervous glances at exit interviews. Marcus, the company's legal counsel and Noah's only real friend left on the inside, sent a quiet warning. They're watching your LinkedIn, making lists, trying to guess who's next. Noah smiled. Let them watch. Let them count. Because the more they stared outside, the more they ignored the fire inside. In a team-wide meeting, Noah stood before his growing staff, 24 people now from 6 different cities. He looked around the room. No corner offices, no engraved nameplates, just laptops, laughter, shared stories. You weren't overlooked, he told them. You were underestimated. And this is your chance to rewrite the story. They didn't cheer. They didn't need to. They knew it already. And in the silence, something powerful happened. People who had once been background players became the architects of a new future. The email arrived on a quiet afternoon. Blake was leaning against the office window, one foot propped on the ledge, espresso long gone cold in his hand. He turned toward Noah with a half-smirk, half-warning look. They actually sent it, he said, spinning his laptop around. The screen showed a message from Grey Rock's board of directors, neatly worded, formally respectful, polished like a last-minute marriage proposal. They wanted to buy Orion Nexus, called it a strategic merger, a synergy of vision, a chance to realign industry leadership. No apologies, no mention of mistakes, just money, and a lot of it. What do we say? Blake asked. Noah didn't answer right away. He stood up and walked slowly out of the room, down the hallway of their modest office, the space built not with flash, but with fire. He passed desks cluttered with coffee cups and open notebooks. He passed team members deep in discussion over new interface prototypes. These weren't acquisitions. These were people who had trusted him. People who had once felt invisible and now built visibly. People who believed again, not in logos, but in each other. Back in the room, Noah looked Blake in the eye and said softly, "Write them one sentence." Blake's fingers tapped the keyboard, his voice low as he read it out. You couldn't afford us then. You still can't now. He hit send. That was it. No speeches. No theatrics. Just a period at the end of a long, broken sentence that Grey Rock had written for itself. Noah didn't look back. He didn't need to, because temptation only works when you still feel like you're missing something. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't. This wasn't about rejecting wealth. It was about rejecting the idea that value could be measured only in zeros. He had built something that mattered, and that was never for sale. It didn't happen all at once. Empires never collapse like that. They erode, silently, slowly, until one morning you step inside and nothing holds anymore. Grey Rock's boardroom had once been a symbol of power. Mahogany table, backlit company logo, voices that spoke in certainty. Now it echoed. The chairs were still there, but the confidence was gone. It began with resignations. First, Kendra. The official press release said she was pursuing new opportunities. Everyone knew it meant she'd been pushed. The board cited catastrophic mismanagement of key relationships. But the real reason? She had underestimated the one thing she couldn't fake, trust. And Noah had it in spades. Grant Ellison was next. Not fired, not exactly. He was moved aside, transitioned to a lesser title. The press tried to spin it as a strategic pivot, but investors weren't fooled. The stock had dropped over 30% in 4 months. Clients were quietly pulling out. Executives who once smiled behind podiums now avoided phone calls. Internal Slack channels turned into minefields of silence and rumor. Noah didn't gloat. When he read the headline, Grey Rock brings in crisis management team as exodus continues, he didn't feel satisfaction. He felt closure. You don't cheer when a house crumbles. You just nod if you were the one who saw the termites first. More employees left, not out of rebellion, but because something had shifted. The people who used to whisper about salary bands and corner offices now talked about purpose. They wanted meaning. Gray Rock, for all its metrics and polish, had none left to give. And then came the message. An email from Grant, sent to Noah's personal address. It wasn't long. Just a sentence and a name. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Grant. Noah stared at it. Not with anger. Not with triumph. But with something close to empathy. In another world, they might have built something extraordinary together. But that wasn't this world. In this one, the damage was done. Some bridges don't burn in flames. They just quietly fall apart under the weight of everything unsaid. He didn't reply. Instead, he opened his laptop, looked over the quarterly reports, and smiled. Orion Nexus was growing faster than any projection had predicted. Not because they chased disruption, but because they remembered something Gray Rock had forgotten. People don't follow companies. They follow people. And they stay for values. The office had grown noisier with success. Orion Nexus now stretched across 2 floors, with more desks, more meetings, more voices. The walls once scribbled with ideas now displayed framed articles, awards, partnership plaques. What started in borrowed corners had become something real, self-sustaining, breathing. Noah watched it all like a father at graduation. Proud but distant. He still showed up early, still brewed the first pot of coffee. But he no longer led the morning briefings or reviewed every pitch deck. His fingerprints were everywhere, yet his hands had stepped back. The team didn't need a leader shouting from the front anymore. They needed space to walk their own path. So Noah gave it to them. He began spending more time in the quiet room upstairs. A small space with no screens, just shelves of books and a single worn notebook. That's where he started writing. Not memoirs, letters. They were unsigned. Some addressed to future founders, some to disillusioned employees trapped in broken systems. Others to no one in particular, just fragments of insight, reminders of what he wished someone had told him years ago. He called them notes from a firekeeper, because that's what he had become. Not a torchbearer, a spark tender, someone who didn't need the spotlight, only to know that the flame he'd lit was alive in others. One of those letters made its way to a university professor who read it aloud in a business ethics class. The students, unaware of its author, debated the line that struck them most. If you want loyalty, build something worth being loyal to. The professor paused after reading it, then asked the room, "Who do you think wrote that?" Guesses flew. CEOs, philosophers, authors. No one said Noah Grant. And that was perfect, because legacy isn't about being remembered. It's about being repeated. On a Thursday afternoon, Noah left the office early. He walked down the street, past buildings he once dreamt of working inside, past the tower that still bore the Gray Rock name. He paused only once, not to gloat, but to reflect. So much energy spent trying to climb what he thought was the right mountain, only to discover the view was clearer from lower ground, as long as you're standing in truth. That night, he lit a candle at home, opened a new page in his notebook, and wrote one sentence. The fire will keep burning, even if they never know who struck the match. A full year had passed. Orion Nexus had tripled in size. New cities, new clients, new teams. But the culture, the heartbeat Noah had poured into the foundation, held steady. No dress codes, no ivory towers, just work that mattered, people who cared, and a shared understanding. The best ideas don't need pedigree. They need room to grow. Noah spent less time in meetings now, more in conversations, quiet lunches with interns, late-night emails to engineers refining the rough edges. He no longer led the mission, but the mission had learned to walk on its own. Then came the invitation, an email from the committee behind the annual Tech Innovation Summit. They wanted Noah to deliver the keynote. Not as a founder, not as a CEO, but as someone who had, in their words, redefined the idea of leadership. Noah almost declined, but something about the moment felt like a circle closing. So he accepted. The room was full, investors, executives, dreamers in hoodies, and cynics in ties. Noah stood at the podium, The spotlight soft, the stage quiet. He didn't open with a story about Grey Rock. He didn't mention Zaria or Blake or the $60 million betrayal. Instead, he said this: I wasn't underestimated. I was misjudged. There's a difference. Underestimation is about what you can do. Misjudgment is about who they think you are. One is a mistake. The other is a mirror. The room held its breath. We've built systems that reward polish over principle, resumes over results. But real value, it doesn't wear a suit. It shows up, stays late, asks questions, and never demands credit. That's what we hired at Orion. That's what we bet on. And that's why we won. He stepped away to a standing ovation. Not because he delivered a performance, but because he spoke a truth so many had lived but never dared say aloud. That night, as he returned to his simple glass-walled office, a small handwritten note waited on his desk. It was from a junior developer. No name, just one line. Because of you, I stopped apologizing for who I wasn't and started building who I am. Noah held the note for a moment, then smiled. A week later, Grey Rock was officially acquired. The name was retired. The brand dissolved. What had once loomed like a monolith became a cautionary tale. Whispers in boardrooms, case studies in MBA classes. And still, Orion Nexus grew. Not because they shouted louder, but because they listened better. One afternoon, Noah visited a university lecture by chance. Sat in the back. The professor read a quote projected on the screen. If leadership isn't about service, it's about ego. And ego doesn't scale. The class debated who said it. Someone guessed a best-selling author. Another said a tech founder. No one guessed Noah Grant. He smiled. Because real impact doesn't leave a signature. It leaves an echo. And long after the noise fades, echoes remain. If this story spoke to something deep inside you, maybe a moment when you were overlooked, doubted, or told you didn't belong, then let it be more than just a story. Let it be a reminder. Your worth isn't defined by where you came from, but by what you choose to build next. So tell me, have you ever walked away from something that didn't see your value? Share your story in the comments. And if this resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another story that challenges how the world sees success. Because sometimes the quietest voices spark the loudest change. And your voice might just be the next echo.